रशिया और यूक्रेन की जो एयर बैटल चल रही है आजकल यूक्रेन के एयर स्पेस में, उसमें सोशल मीडिया में दो न्यूज़ वायरल है। उसमें से एक तो है इंटरव्यू एक फाइटर पायलट का जो मिग 29 जो फ्लाई करता है, उसका नाम है, निक नेम है उसका जूस। तो ये उसका तो एक इंटरव्यू है जो बेसिकली जो एयर बैटल चल रही है उसका वो ओवरव्यू दे रहा है। ये इंटरव्यू आजकल सब जगह कोट हो रहा है। और दूसरा एक पायलट है, वो भी मिग 29 का ही, इसको आप कहते हैं घोस्ट ऑफ कीव, पायलट। और इसको क्रेडिट दिया जा रहा है कि उसने एक दिन में ही 6 रशियन एयरक्राफ्ट्स को शॉट डाउन किया। तो ये जो एयर बैटल चल रही है, जो एयर कॉम्बैट चल रहा है, इसके बारे में ऑब्वियसली काफ़ी कुछ इंट्रिकेसीज हैं जो लेमैन को या हम लोगों को नहीं पता होती। तो मैंने आज इनवाइट किया ग्रुप कैप्टन भारद्वाज को, जो बेसिकली एयर वॉरियर है और ही हैज़ गॉट इमेंस नॉलेज। तो आज पहला क्वेश्चन मेरा आपसे स्ट्रेट वे ये है, दिस इज रिगार्डिंग द कोप इंडिया एक्सरसाइज बिटवीन इंडिया एंड यूएस एयरफोर्स। और इसमें जो पिचिंग हुई थी, वो जो बाइसन है हमारा मिग 21 अपग्रेडेड वर्जन वर्सेस F-15C जो यूएस एयरफोर्स का था। और उसमें बड़े कुछ सरप्राइजिंग रिजल्ट आए, और ये रिजल्ट कहाँ पे एक्सपोज हुए, अभी आके जब यूक्रेन और रशिया की जो एयर बैटल चल रही है, वट एवर लेवल दैट इज, उसमें ये रिजल्ट्स का भी रेफरेंस आ रहा है कि मिग 21 यानी कि बाइसन अपग्रेडेड वर्जन ने F-15 के अगेंस्ट में बड़े अच्छे रिजल्ट दिए, जबकि दोनों का टेक्नोलॉजिकल लेवल बिल्कुल ही अलग अलग है। तो हाउ दैट इज पॉसिबल एंड व्हाट आर द इम्प्लीकेशंस ऑफ दिस?
Yes, thank you for this question. MiG-21 air defense role में या air combat में, when you're using at the long ranges with the air-to-air missile, long-range air-to-air missile, which we call as the BVRs, at that point in time, the avionics, now with all the new Israeli radars and all that, their capability is almost as good or at par with any modern generation aircraft, because they're having the similar avionics and they also carry similar kind of weapon systems. So agar the weapon ranges aap compare karenge, to we can be almost there, as it was proved during our operation in our western sector with Pakistan recently, where we took on F-16s. Now, where F-15 and MiG-21s are concerned, when it comes to air combat, our training has been such that there's so much of emphasis was laid earlier on air combat, because we were using A4Ms, all aspect air-to-air missiles, which are close combat, close quarter missiles. So I think one of the most difficult part during air combat is to spot the aircraft in the close proximity with the visual ranges where the radar is not working. There, the maneuverability of MiG-21, the aspects of the aspect at which, or the detection area of the MiG-21 reduces so much that it becomes difficult to pick up. So that could be one of the reasons why they were able to perform much better against F-15s, and they outmaneuver them in the close combat. Long range, of course, it won't be the same results.
मतलब अगर BVR यानी कि बियॉन्ड विजुअल रेंज मिसाइल्स यूज़ की जाती हैं, तो उस हालत में जिसके पास भी बेटर विजिबिलिटी होगी रेंज वाइज, ही विल बी मोर सक्सेसफुल। लेकिन क्लोज कॉम्बैट जब होगा, उसमें मिग 21 अपग्रेडेड वर्जन का अच्छा खासा मतलब इट हैज़ गोट द एडवांटेज। और उसका
No,
रडार सिग्नेचर
I
से भी
think
कोई
that
मतलब है?
No, I don't think it is the technology, because technology aircraft key is very old and vintage. Aircraft engine may have been changed, the airframe is the same, so the performance, whether we talk in terms of the acceleration, we talk in terms of rate of turn, etc., or climb, all those are very standard parameters. They have not undergone any change. But what is important here is that air combat in the close proximity is where the pilot skills come into play, and that's where, because of our training of our pilots, they probably outmaneuvered F-15s where they were not used to close combat. जैसे आपने बताया, BVR ranges जिसकी ज़्यादा है, he will have the advantage. So there is no question. But when it comes to outmaneuvering them in the close proximity, in the close quarter, I think MiG-21s, they outplayed F-15s, or even F-16s. We've seen this during the operation that was held in immediately after we struck Balakot.
ओके ओके। अच्छा, मैं अभी जो यूक्रेन रशिया का, जैसे मैं एयर वॉर को थोड़ा सा मॉनिटर कर रहा हूँ, तो उसमें एक बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन आ रहा है लो आल्टीट्यूड फ्लाइंग का। स्पेशली जो ट्रेनिंग पार्ट है ना, ये लो आल्टीट्यूड फ्लाइंग का क्या एडवांटेज है, क्या डिसएडवांटेज है, ये थोड़ा सा मेरे दर्शकों को बताएंगे आप?
Yeah. So low altitude flying fighters इसलिए करते हैं basically to avoid detection by the radar, because हमारे जो ground based radars हैं they are all dependent on something on line of sight. So line of sight of the radar मतलब जितना आप high उड़ेंगे उतना दूर आप पकड़े जाएंगे. So therefore to prevent being detected at long ranges, अगर आप long range पे pick up हो जाते हैं तो enemy air defenses can easily take you on by variety of weapons, whether it is aircraft which is long range or missile systems, surface to air missiles, shoulder fired missiles or air defense artillery guns. तो उसको प्रिवेंट करने के लिए, उसको दैट एडवांटेज डिनाई करने के लिए जो स्ट्राइक एयरक्राफ्ट्स होते हैं वो नॉर्मली दे ट्राई टू फ्लाई लो. सो रडार डिटेक्शंस रिड्यूसेस, सो एयर डिफेंस को जो वार्निंग मिलती है, अर्ली वार्निंग मिलती है टू एंगेज द इनकमिंग फाइटर्स, वो कम हो जाती है. सो दैट इज द रीजन व्हाई दे ऑपरेट एट लो ऑल्टीट्यूड. बट नाउ द लो ऑल्टीट्यूड एक तरफ से आपको एडवांटेज देता है टू प्रिवेंट डिटेक्शन, बट एट द सेम टाइम लो ऑल्टीट्यूड फ्लाई करने के लिए आपके अदर एयरक्राफ्ट के ऊपर, बिकॉज द एयर डेंसिटी इज सो हाई एट द लोअर ऑल्टीट्यूड, द एयरक्राफ्ट परफॉर्मेंस आल्सो रिड्यूसेस. सो आप की जो स्पीड्स है, आपके रेट ऑफ टर्न्स हैं, ऑल दैट अंडरगो अ वेरी सीरियस डिग्रेडेशन. तो अब नाउ देयर इज अ कॉम्बिनेशन, इट्स अ पैराडॉक्सिकल सिचुएशन कि आप एक तरफ से अपने आप को प्रोटेक्ट करना चाहते हो बट आपके एयरक्राफ्ट के पैरामीटर्स आल्सो काफी कम हो जाते हैं, मतलब देयर इज अ लिमिटेशन व्हिच कम्स इन. ऑल्सो आपने जैसे देखा होगा इवन यूक्रेन वॉर में पीपल आर कैरिंग शोल्डर फाइट मिसाइल्स नाउ. They are freely moving around, so we can't pinpoint कि कहाँ पे है. So they carry shoulder fight missiles. So even shoulder fight missiles are, then you become target to shoulder fight missiles. So flying low, on one side we try to avoid detection by enemy air defense systems, but at the same time you also come within the envelope of the shoulder fight missiles. Like if you remember during Kargil operations, Squadron Ahuja was shot down by one of the shoulder fight missiles itself, because he came down low to look for Nachiketa, who had ejected. So missiles were able to take him on. So that is a disadvantage.
एक्चुअली अगर आप जिस पायलट का, हमने जो यूक्रेन एयरफोर्स का पायलट है जिसका जो रेफरेंस हमने एक्चुअली पूरे डिस्कशन में लिया है, इसने एक बड़ा इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट बोला कि इसने रेफरेंस आया एक्चुअली एक यूक्रेन पायलट का, जिसका एक्चुअली आप ट्विटर पे देखो उसके बारे में लोग कह रहे हैं कि उसने एक ही दिन में 6 एयरक्राफ्ट रशियन एयरफोर्स के गिराए. अब वो सही है कि नहीं है, दैट इज ऑल टुगेदर ए डिफरेंट इशू. इट कैन बी पार्ट ऑफ द प्रोपेगेंडा और सही ऑप्स. बट एक स्टेटमेंट उसने बिल्कुल क्लियर कहा कि जो बेस्ट ट्रेन्ड पायलट है, ही विल बी इनएडिक्वेट इफ ही डज नॉट हैव द राइट टूल्स. Is it a fact?
Yeah, it is a fact. It is a fact. Actually, modern warfare में अगर आप देखें, like जैसे हमने बात की MiG-21 की, we said earlier these MiG-21 did not have the BVR missiles. So अगर हम उसमें ace pilot भी बिठा दें, person who has flown 5,000, 6,000 hours on it, and he is an ace on this particular aircraft, until unless he has the weapons, and along with the weapons, the avionics on board, he will not be able to detect. He will not be able to bring the aircraft in the envelope where he can destroy the enemy aircraft. तो weapon systems, the avionics, ये पूरा suite जो है ना, एक बहुत important है. So man is fine, the man behind the machine is fine, but the machine should be up to the requirement of the environment in which the machine is operating. Otherwise, man can do only that much and not beyond. Like, for example, if I have a BVR environment and the aircraft is coming with, say, 100, 120 kilometers of BVR range, and I can only fire a close combat missile which has a range of, say, 5-6 kilometers, I stand no chance, irrespective of what happens. Maybe a chance factor, that means I am positioned at a place where he becomes vulnerable, I'm in his beam quarters, as we say, okay, at 90 degrees, something like this, or here, then it is a different issue. But if it is in frontal quarters, in the beam to beam, axis to axis, beak to beak, as we call, there's no way a pilot can do anything.
Okay. एक पॉइंट और उसने कहा, वो पॉइंट उसने कहा कि जैसे वो MiG-29 एक्चुअली ही वाज फ्लाइंग, तो at one point of time his aircraft, that is MiG-29, was deployed against drones and cruise missiles. तो मुझे ये थोड़ा सा can a fighting aircraft like this can be used against cruise missile and drone successfully?
Yes, if see, it is like this that we have tried it. In fact, have we have tried all this when initially UAVs came, drones or UAVs, aircraft which are. Let me start by first by talking about cruise missiles. As long as the cruise missiles are flying at supersonic and detected by the enemy by our own air defense system, that means radars either airborne or ground based. Uh, and we are in a position to bring our aircraft in a position with respect to the cruise missile where they are within the missile ranges, that is the aircraft missile ranges, they can be destroyed. Okay, now we also had radars from earlier itself who could detect the cruise missiles because radar cross section used to be low, but we could detect them and we can take them on. Then we also started when the UAV started coming in. You can say towards the late 90s, we started intercepting, we started planning how to intercept these UAVs, which are low flying, low cross section, radar cross section. We started doing that. So we did that. So if we are talking about drones, and the drones are, of a larger size, or if they are flying at a specific speeds, they can be detected. But if you calling them swarm drones and all that, then it becomes difficult because even if one is destroyed, it's like a bee, a bunch of bees and all that. So which one to be destroyed? So you can't destroy everything. But yes, one can be destroyed, two can be destroyed. But theoretically, it is possible to destroy as long as these drones can be detected by airborne radar of the aircraft, and then the missiles can be launched onto them. Cruise missiles, definitely, they can also be intercepted.
ओके ये तो थ्योरेटिकल पार्ट हो गया बट अगर आप क्रूज मिसाइल के अगेंस्ट में देखें तो यू हैव गॉट द ग्राउंड डिफेंस एयर डिफेंस सिस्टम जो भी आपके पास है या फिर आपके पास एयरक्राफ्ट है अगर दोनों में से किसी एक को सेलेक्ट करना हो तो आप क्या सेलेक्ट करेंगे या दोनों को आप साइमल्टेनियसली डिप्लॉय करेंगे अगर क्रूज मिसाइल्स का थ्रेट हो तो
The cruise missiles are almost like an aeroplane. They are operating within the atmosphere, within how you can say troposphere or maybe a little above troposphere they're operating. Like abhi wo, last case where we had a missile deviated towards Pakistan. It said it flew up to 40,000 feet. So it is flying almost like an airplane. So if it is flying like an aeroplane, we can detect and destroy like any other airplane. Okay. Now, when we talk in terms of supersonic cruise missiles, what happens is the reaction time to the air defense system and in this case detection and destruction becomes that much limited in terms of the reaction time. But it is possible to destroy. Where it comes to the missiles of Prithvi class or Agni class, who are intercontinental missiles or missiles which do not follow the which have a trajectory, like they go out of the air, they go into outer space and then are directed towards the target. Though there we cannot use the aeroplanes. So that is it. But for cruise missiles, we can use aeroplanes. We can use, that is, our fighter aeroplanes, air defense role. In air defense role, we can also use a missile system, that is surface-to-air missiles. Like if you look at now S-400 class of missile, they will have a weapon complement which can take on these cruise missiles also. So it is possible to use both. Now, the advantage with the aeroplane is that it can be maneuvered. It is, you can move the aircraft. Like suppose we have a threat, we are sitting in Pune and we have a threat, say in Gujarat area, we can move the aeroplanes to Jamnagar and from there they can take on the threat. But missile, it becomes fixed to a particular point for the operational purpose. Until the entire squadron is again moved, it becomes fixed to that. So therefore, we'll have to keep all these factors in mind. But given a point, अगर यहाँ पे ही missile point है या इसी envelope के अंदर वो aircraft is being detected, so it'll be possible to take on with missiles also. For a simple reason, you cannot have aircraft all up in the air 24/7, and endurance becomes a problem, availability becomes a problem. Therefore, the missiles are that way much better. They can. It's only a question of putting them in a higher readiness, and they can take on for a longer duration of time. So it's a combination of the two.
Okay, so air battle between Ukraine and Russia, and you have been monitoring it closely. I know that. अगर आप रशिया की साइड से हैं फॉर एग्जांपल पुट योर सेल्फ इन द शूज ऑफ रशियन एयरफोर्स what they have done, is that the best one they could have done, or they could have done something better?
From the air perspective, if I look at only the air operations, I'm not looking at the ground operations as of now.
Yeah.
I think they have gone in a very classical way in their air operations. So first and the foremost is they destroyed the Ukrainian air defense systems. That is the first stage of the air operation. So where they launched attacks on the enemy air defense system, like radars, their air defense, other, whatever stations they had. Having destroyed them, then they went into destroying the Ukrainian Air Force on ground itself. They what we call as a counter air operations, where you destroy the enemy airfields, enemy aircraft on ground, and you see the results. Like today, if you ask them, Ukrainians do not have the aircraft to fly or runway to get airborne from. Either they have they're moved away from the frontline bases where the attack is coming to such places where they can defend themselves, or the aircrafts have been completely destroyed. So they went about in a classical manner, destroy the air defense system so that there's no interference from the Ukrainian Air Force. Then they destroyed the Ukrainian Air Force on ground virtually. So nothing much or very, very little is left. And that is one of the reasons that article that you mentioned about the Ukrainian Air Force pilot now doing ground defense. It's primarily because the Ukrainian Air Force has nothing to fly and fight back in the air. So now you're defending your airbase against the ground attack. Yeah.
So, okay, now put yourself in the shoes of the Ukrainian Air Force. What you could have done better? Have they done something good? Because they had some initial successes.
Yeah, see, those part success and point successes here and there will always be there in any operation, because it's a very complex and a dynamic situation which continuously is evolving. So one cannot say just because I've got superiority in numbers, I'm large, I have large volume or large number of aircraft on my inventory, so therefore I will be able to achieve 100% kill without any attrition. Now that is not possible. That I don't think any military planner will ever think about it. But yes, so therefore Ukrainians were able to score one odd hit here and there and cause attrition. But if I look at being a Ukrainian from the Ukrainian Air Force, the kind of warning we had, there were geopolitical signaling which was going on for a very long time. I think the air defense system should have been upgraded over the period of time, and that is where we should have prevented. So if I was in Ukrainian Air Force, I think the best we could have done was to upgrade our air defense systems and make them as strong as possible, so that we can cause as much of attrition on the Russian Air Force as possible and delay their advances, as we have seen. So delayed their advances, and try to keep your air assets in as good condition as possible to retaliate. Because what we are seeing is, it is for Russian Air Force, it was just a walkover. I mean, they just came, knocked off in sequence. They knocked off the air defense system. They knocked off the air assets. And now it is left to the ground forces to work. And whatever the Air Force is now doing is primarily in support of whatever the ground forces are doing. So more of a ground support to the ground, back to the ground troops. So that is where it stands. So if like they say, it was inevitable, the situation was inevitable, we could have done to delay it. Now what you see them withdraw, or Russians are withdrawing, or Ukrainians are fighting back on ground, I think that they could have planned a little better.
Report in which Russian Air Force, they attacked with hypersonic missiles. Probably it was not possible for Ukrainians to counter those missiles. So, can you give us some idea about these missiles and why they were so accurate and why they could not be intercepted or something like that?
Yeah, hypersonic missiles are now the state of art missiles, and every country is working towards developing these hypersonic missiles. And hypersonic missiles again means they are flying almost about 5 times the speed of sound. The detection becomes difficult, then interception becomes difficult, and therefore very little that you can do in the current scenario unless the air defense systems are also geared up to take on the challenge. So that is one reason why the Ukrainians could not accept or could not counter the attack of hypersonic missiles. It was advantage Russian Air Force in terms of technology, in terms of numbers. Sheer size of the air attack was too overwhelming for Ukrainians to.
Thank you so much. You have answered so many questions, so many queries have been clarified. Thank you so much, Group Captain Bhardwaj. It's really a pleasure interacting with you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.